Just real quickly, I'll ask you to look in this camera and just say who you are.
My name is Brandy Fox.
Brandy, tell me about your Jeremy. What kind of husband and father?
My Jeremy, he was loving, caring, huge heart. If you needed him, you could call him. He would be there. He gave you his word. He was 100% helped you. He would give you the shirt off his back. You never heard no from him. He was a genuine man, irreplaceable. Missed extremely.
Tell me, what do you miss most about him?
Everything. His smile, his touch, his laugh, sorry. I miss him. My soulmate. I miss the conversations we had. I just miss my partner a lot.
Your partner?
He was my best friend. We didn't really need anybody else. We entertained each other. It was me and Jeremy, or me and the kids, you know. We stuck together. And that piece of me is gone, and I cannot get it back.
You told me that he had suffered from PTSD. Tell me about that.
He had PTSD. He also had high anxiety. He also had bipolar. He was going to the VA for it. He was seeing a therapist and a psychologist. He was doing great, but his therapist passed away. And then they got him a new one, but before Jeremy was able to get to know them, they would switch out doctors on him over and over again. So Jeremy started going less and less, talking to him less and less, and kept more, to himself. We would talk about it occasionally, he would bring it up. I can kind of tell if he was going to have a good day or a bad day for all the years, we've been together. It was just, once his therapist passed, the VA kind of didn't stick with the same one. And so Jeremy didn't want to open up again to someone new. It took Jeremy, with his first therapist, like 8 months to actually open up to him. Jeremy said they used to go in there and just sit and just look at each other until his therapist just started talking about, the weather and, just anything else, And Jeremy finally opened up to him, and he worked through a lot of problems with him. He helped him out a lot. People need to learn to work with him. There's more people out there that, they need the help. And they're scared to get it because they're going to be judged or something.
And I know that's bothered you with the way some people have looked at in the perceptions of your husband's death. When you and I were talking, you told me it's almost like some people look at him like he wasn't a person.
Yeah, like he was a monster, and he wasn't. Jeremy was anything but that. What everyone saw on TV, the public saw on TV, is what Bossier City wanted them to see. They released what they wanted them to recognize Jeremy with. Like putting his background on TV, that's not something they should have done. My husband was dead, an officer killed him. And they're dragging his name through the mud. And me and my kids, our name through the mud, and we still have to stand by him. We still stand by him. And we still want justice for him, for that officer shooting my husband.
We'll switch gears a little bit, and I know this may get difficult, but tell me about the morning that Jeremy passed.
When I woke up, he was already up. He was in a great mood. He went and got McDonald's for us to eat breakfast. We sat down and watched TV. We talked about our day. He was going to go and visit his dad. I was going to stay home with the kids, and get dressed because we're going to have the rest of the day to do stuff. We all walked out back, and then he was like, "Okay, I'm going to leave now." And I was like, "All right, see you later." And that was it. And then I didn't get notified until 7:40, 7:50 that night. Yeah, that's when I got notified.
Were you worried prior to that? Had you tried to call him or reach
No,
out?
because when he goes usually 2 or 3 times to see his dad, and he'll go pick him up. They go out to eat. They'll go to Harbor Freights. They would go window shopping. It's an all-day thing.
When he left, did you have any indication that he might be in a psychiatric crisis or having...
None. I would never let him leave if I thought, there was a problem. But he was in great spirits. I don't understand. I didn't know what happened between the house and CenturyLink, which is only like a minute drive, minute two.
And you still don't have
I still
those
have.
answers?
No, sir.
How hard is it for you still not having those answers of what
It's-
happened in that time?
It's very hard. Explaining to my kids, they're like, hey, what happened? When are we going to get answers? I was like, I don't know. I don't see us getting answers. Nobody wants to talk. And I've looked at like the places around for videos and stuff, and nobody wants to release their videos to me so I can see what's going on. I do have the Angela Rivers one. That's the video I have. I mean, that's what showed me that my husband did not kill himself. But what happened from the house to CenturyLink, I'll never know. I'll never know what went through his mind or what made him go to CenturyLink. Those are questions I'll never get to answer.
And how you told me you didn't find out till 7:45 that night. How did you end up finding out your husband had been killed?
Me and my older son, we were walking outside, and as soon as we walked out, there was two officers or two men walking up to us, and come to find out they were the detectives. And they wanted Jeremy Fox as the next of kin. I said I was his wife, Brandy Fox, and they went ahead to tell me that Jeremy was no longer with us, that he passed away at 12:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, no, I said, y'all are joking, and I kind of looked down. I was like, where's he at? I was looking for him. And my son was like, sorry. He was like, where's Dad? What happened? And the detective actually told us that my husband walked up to an officer, took his gun from him, stepped back, and shot himself in the head. That's what we first heard. And that's not what happened at all. My daughter that was her first visit home since college started. And our youngest son was inside, and they were listening to the door. The scream that she let out, I will never forget. And for them to come and tell us that's how he died, knowing that's not how he died, it's heartbreaking. How can they lie like that? I mean, I don't understand that. And then when I asked to go see him, I was denied that too. I wasn't able to identify Jeremy until the day before his funeral. That's when I finally got to go and actually say, that's my husband.
When you start to learn more about the circumstances of his passing, what goes through your mind?
He was alone. He was by himself. Nobody was there to help him. What was he thinking? What was going through his mind? Why didn't somebody comfort him, knowing what they just did? They just kind of all just stood by and watched. That's what haunts me still, knowing he died by himself.
Do you have worries seeing how your husband passed, that the Bossier City Police Department doesn't have adequate training to deal with people suffering mental illness?
They do not. They don't at all, because Officer Braggs had his gun pulled on my husband the second he got out of his car. And if you've seen the video, Jeremy was in his boxers. You can tell he had no weapon. You can tell there was something wrong with someone standing outside in their boxers. That's not a normal person. The normal person's not going to do that. Instead of pulling your gun out on them, try to talk to them. Don't just, come at them like that. And someone that's having a mental breakdown, they're going to be more agitated. They're going to, not want you in their face. And, if you can talk to them, talk to them. Bring them, see what's going on in their world. What's going on, what went wrong. See if you can't talk them back over. Instead of just going off on them and the way Officer Braggs did my husband. He didn't give him a chance.
Do you think they've even treated you with the kindness that you deserve as a widow now?
No, not at all. Like in the beginning, Detective Woodington, or Woodifer, he spoke to me. The last time he spoke to me was on the 17th or the 18th of February, and that's when I kept calling for about 3 or 4 days asking for my husband's wallet. And he finally got back to me, and he released it to me. But after that, he had nothing to do with me or my kids. He never kept us, what was going on, or he had nothing.
Did they ever tell you they're sorry for your loss?
No. They had no contact with me afterwards.
You didn't even get the opportunity to tell your kids their father had passed. They overheard police telling them that he had...
Yes, sir. And they told me on my front porch.
And you have a difficult time with the characterization that this was a suicide.
It wasn't. I still to this day, none of my family believes it. Jeremy he didn't believe in killing himself. He would not kill himself. He would not have done that to me and the kids. We were everything to him, and he was everything to us. Jeremy, he wanted heaven. He didn't want to go to hell. He wouldn't believed in that stuff. Jeremy was a very Christian man. When we went to church, a lot, Jeremy knew the Bible front to back. Jeremy would have never shot himself, ever. And so when they come to me and say, no, I'm sorry.
Do you worry without crisis intervention training that Bossier City Police could find themselves in this situation again and someone like your husband could die?
Oh, yes, they will. They have already. And they'll do it again, and they'll just cover it up again. That's how Bossier City works. They mess up and they screw up, and then they just kind of hush everybody up. And then if you don't fall in line, you get moved or you get fired or you get paid off. That's the way I think Bossier City works.
You spoke right here with a sister and a mother who lost in Bossier City their son who was shot and killed. He was in a psychiatric crisis. And I'm going to ask you the same question they did. There obviously, and there never can be a silver lining of losing someone. It isn't. But in what do you hope as a community we can learn and do in the wake of your husband's death?
Don't accept what police say. It's not always 100%. Don't judge the person. Find out who the person is first. See what's going on in their life. Don't just judge them. Don't sling mud at them. They're already gone. All you're doing is hurting the family. And, that cuts deep.
And let me ask you about that. Do you think, people are unfairly, I don't want to say judging, but looking differently at you and your children because of the way your husband passed?
Yes. Once they find out my last name, they want to, well, is that your husband? Da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, but let me tell you about my husband. Not what the media wants you to see or the police want you to see. Let me, show you who my husband was. And a lot of them, they're like, yeah, okay. They could see how the cops kind of covered everything up or hid the video, the one main video that would show that my husband didn't kill himself. And but there's still some people are like, no, Bossier City's right. He shouldn't have been acting like that.
Do you think there's a chance if Bossier City police officers had that type of training, the crisis intervention training, your husband might be alive today?
Yes, sir. I do believe that. I think if they knew what they were doing before they even got on the scene, they would have known something, to call someone in if they didn't know how to handle it, bring someone in, talk to them. I think my husband would still be here today.
And the officer that responded to that scene had an interaction with your husband just a couple of days earlier and knew he suffered from some mental issues.
Yes, sir.
So you think he should have had some indication, some reasonable idea that your husband was in crisis?
Yes. He should have known the way he was acting. I mean, before he even got to the scene, he knew that something wasn't right. But he said in one of his reports that in his years being on the police force, you know, the man was acting erratic and didn't have a shirt on and waving his arms and on his knees and stuff. Oh, he must be on drugs. That's in one of his reports. And, I mean, he just went on his past, you know, the officers, what he's dealt with. Jeremy's a whole new person, you know, he's someone different. Each case you go on is someone different. Everyone has a different outcome.
Well, and some people experts that I've spoken to and officers that have come here to the work and training with Shreveport said that's a big problem sometimes. There's a preconception with officers that when they meet someone that's having a psychotic episode that they're on drugs, and they treat them as such. It escalates quickly, and it often goes sideways and ends tragically. And you feel that assumption that your husband was someone who was on drugs ultimately led to his death.
Yes, that's what he thought he was on, some kind of, he said PCP, that he said that's what he acted like.
Had you ever seen your husband act violently before?
No, sir.
How long ago was your husband diagnosed with his illness?
The bipolar, I'm gonna say a good 5 years. He had about a good 5 years.
And the PTSD?
He had probably about 10, 11. So we were managing it. But, I mean, he's still, you know, bipolar. You know, you still have your good days and your bad days. But he knew how to manage it. And that day, I would love to know what happened. Just what happened to my husband.
The last question, may be the hardest. You're incredibly strong to me. I was amazed when we met and when we've talked since then. How have you pushed through to this point?
My kids. My family, Jeremy. Jeremy has helped me a lot. He would not want me to sit down and, you know, sit back and be like, oh, you know, this happened to me. No, get up and do something about it. You know, make it known that he was here. He was here on earth. Don't let his memory die.